The moment my wedding cake hit the floor, everyone thought it was an accident. What they didn't know was that I had planned the fall long before the cake ever existed. Because by the time the first layer shattered, my sister was already swaying. And by the time the guests screamed, she was seconds away from exposing herself in front of everyone who ever enabled her. My name is Elena Moore. I was 31 years old, a corporate compliance manager, living in Asheville, North Carolina. Logical, measured, predictable. Or at least, that's what my family believed, right up until Christmas Eve changed everything. This was supposed to be my dream wedding. A winter ceremony, candlelight, pine garlands, soft carols playing under falling snow. An $80,000 Christmas Eve wedding paid for mostly by my fiancé's family. 300 guests. Old money. Quiet judgment. Perfect smiles. And standing beside me in a velvet emerald dress was my younger sister, Lila. 28. Self-proclaimed digital creative. Which was her polite way of saying she hadn't held a real job in 6 years. Here's the part that still makes my hands shake. Lila didn't just want attention that night. She wanted destruction. I didn't know it yet, but while I was greeting guests and hugging relatives, she was already working her plan. Smiling too wide. Watching me too closely. Waiting for the right moment to slip something into my drink. And she almost got away with it. Before I tell you how, pause for a second. Seriously. Hold on, before we get into the real stuff, I want to know, what are you doing at this exact moment while hearing my voice? Are you folding laundry? Lying in bed? Pretending to work? I love seeing your answers down below in the comments. Now back to Christmas Eve. From the outside, my family looked warm and united. But inside, we were a perfectly wrapped box filled with resentment. Lila had always been the favorite. Not subtly. Not accidentally. My parents bent around her like gravity didn't apply the same way. Missed rent? She's finding herself. Maxed out cards? She's stressed. Borrowed money never returned? Don't be so cold, Elena. Meanwhile, I was the reliable one. The fixer. The daughter who didn't need help. So I never got any. By the time I met my fiancé, Grant, I had learned to survive without expectation. Grant's family was different. Structured. Wealthy. Observant. They valued appearances. Reputation. Control. And Lila hated that. She hated that I was marrying into stability while she was drowning in silence and debt. She hated that Christmas Eve, her favorite holiday, was no longer about her. And most of all, she hated that for once, everyone would be watching me. The ceremony began perfectly. Snow drifting like choreography. Music swelling at just the right moments. I took a sip of champagne during the reception. Then another. Something tasted off. Not bad. Just wrong. A slow warmth crept up my spine. My thoughts felt slightly delayed, like sound lagging behind video. That's when I saw Lila watching me. Not with concern. With anticipation. And suddenly, it clicked. She wasn't nervous for me. She was waiting for me to fall apart. Because if I embarrassed myself in front of Grant's family, if I looked unstable, sloppy, ungrateful, she wouldn't look like the failure anymore. But here's what Lila never understood about me. I don't react emotionally. I calculate. And once I realized what she had done, I didn't confront her. I didn't panic. I smiled. Because if she wanted a show, I was about to let her take center stage, and it would happen right after the cake was cut. The scariest part wasn't realizing my drink had been tampered with. It was realizing how calm I felt once I knew. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. Instead, my mind sharpened. Because suddenly, every strange detail from the last hour lined up perfectly. Lila hovering near the bar. Lila insisting she grab drinks for the girls. Lila watching my glass more than my face. And now, Lila smiling like she knew a secret no one else could see. I set my champagne down untouched after that second sip. I forced my shoulders back. I slowed my breathing. If she expected me to spiral, she was going to be disappointed. But I needed proof. And more importantly, I needed witnesses. Christmas Eve weddings have a strange energy. Everyone's emotional, nostalgic, slightly buzzed, which makes them terrible at noticing quiet danger, but excellent at remembering public spectacle. I leaned toward Grant and whispered that I wasn't feeling well. Just enough to be believable, not enough to cause alarm. His hand tightened around mine. Concern flickered across his face, and right then, Lila appeared. Too fast. Too eager. "Oh my God, are you okay?" she asked, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Her voice dripped with fake concern. I nodded weakly. Played my part. "I think I just need some air," I said. She offered to help me walk. Of course she did. As her arm wrapped around mine, I smelled her perfume. Sweet, heavy, over-applied. The scent she used when she wanted attention. That's when I felt it. Her fingers tightening, testing how unsteady I was. Disappointment flashed across her face when I didn't stumble. We stepped onto the terrace, snow crunching under our shoes. Cold air hit my lungs, grounding me just enough. "You're pale," she said softly. Not kindly. Calculating. "I'll be fine," I replied. Then I added, "Maybe I just drank too fast." Her lips twitched. There it was. The confirmation. She thought she was winning. Inside, my brain was already 10 steps ahead. I excused myself to the restroom. Not the bridal suite. The public one. Because I wanted staff nearby. I locked myself in a stall and called the wedding coordinator. 3 minutes. That's all it took. I didn't accuse. I didn't dramatize. I simply said, "I believe my drink was altered. I need help controlling the next hour." Professionals know what that means. When I stepped back out, the coordinator nodded once. Understood. Back in the ballroom, dinner was being served. Candles glowed. Laughter rose. And Lila? She was radiant. Relaxed. Certain. She raised her glass multiple times, laughing louder than necessary. Enjoying what she believed was the calm before my collapse. That's when my mother approached me. Concerned, but not for the right reasons. "Sweetheart," she whispered, "you don't look yourself." Before I could respond, Lila slipped in beside her. "Oh, she's just overwhelmed," she said quickly. Too quickly. My mother nodded. Of course she did. Years of conditioning told her that Lila was the helper, and I was the problem. That realization stung more than the drug ever could. Then came the announcement. The cake. A 5-tier winter masterpiece. White frosting. Red velvet layers. Gold leaf accents. Worth more than my first car. As the staff rolled it out, I caught Lila's eye. She was watching me. Waiting. And that's when I made my move. I turned to her and smiled. Not sweetly. Knowingly. "Lila," I said, loud enough for the nearby table to hear. "You should give a toast later. People love hearing from you." Her eyes lit up. Because that was all she ever wanted. "I'd love to," she said. Perfect. Because by the time she took the microphone, she wouldn't be toasting me. She'd be exposing herself. And the first crack in her perfect image was about to happen. Right as the knife touched the cake. They say moments before chaos feel strangely quiet. That's exactly how it felt as we gathered around the cake. Soft music, clinking glasses, 300 faces smiling in anticipation. And me, perfectly still. The coordinator handed me the knife. Grant stood close, unaware that the biggest betrayal of my life was standing just feet away, pretending to beam with sisterly pride. Lila was practically vibrating. She leaned forward slightly, eyes darting between my hands and my face. She was waiting for the slip. The wobble. The embarrassing mistake she could later explain away as stress or too much champagne. I lifted the knife. Paused. For just a fraction too long. A few guests laughed softly, thinking it was nerves. Grant whispered, "You okay?" I smiled. Yes, just taking it all in. And then, I tilted the knife deliberately. The cake didn't fall all at once. It collapsed slowly, like it was deciding whether to obey gravity. A gasp rippled through the room. Someone screamed. The bottom tier slid first, dragging the rest with it, frosting exploding against the marble floor in a violent splash of red and white. It looked like a crime scene. Silence followed. Then murmurs. Phones came out. Whispers spread like wildfire. I stood frozen, hand over my mouth, eyes wide. The perfect picture of a bride in shock. Lila's reaction was instant. "Oh my God," she said loudly, rushing toward me. Her voice was sharp with excitement disguised as concern. She grabbed my arm. Hard. "Are you okay? Did you feel dizzy?" There it was. The narrative she'd rehearsed. I let my knees buckle slightly. Just enough. The room leaned in. I don't know," I murmured. "I feel strange." That's when she overplayed her hand. She turned to my mother, to Grant's parents, to anyone who would listen. "I was worried about this," she said, shaking her head dramatically. "She barely ate today. I told her not to drink." I saw my mother nod. Again, that familiar sting returned. But then something beautiful happened. The coordinator stepped forward. Calm, professional, authority wrapped in a black blazer. "Let's get Elena seated," she said firmly. "And someone bring water." She guided me, not Lila, away from the crowd, breaking the illusion of control Lila thought she had. As I sat, the room buzzed. Speculation, curiosity, suspicion. And Lila? She was being watched now. Not admired. Observed. I sipped water slowly, never breaking character. That's when I noticed her hand shaking, because the spotlight had shifted. And she hadn't planned for that. Grant crouched beside me. His eyes searched my face. "Do you want to stop?" he whispered. "No," I said softly. "Not yet." Because the real show hadn't even started. A staff member quietly cleared the wreckage of the cake. Too quietly. Too efficiently. It was like nothing had happened, which unsettled people even more. The music resumed. Dinner continued. But the mood had changed. Lila tried to laugh it off. Tried to reclaim the room. She moved from table to table, telling different versions of the story. "She's just emotional. She gets like this under pressure. I warned her." Every sentence painted her as the savior, and me as the liability. I let her, because arrogance makes people sloppy. As the night wore on, I noticed guests glancing between us, comparing, reconsidering, the woman who claimed to be helping, and the bride who hadn't caused a single scene. That contrast mattered. Finally, the DJ's voice cut through the chatter. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "before we continue with dancing, we have a few toasts." Lila stiffened. then smiled. She had forgotten. Or maybe she thought I had. She reached for her clutch, pulled out her phone, straightened her posture. She looked unstoppable. I caught her eye across the room, held her gaze, and nodded. That's when she walked toward the microphone, confident, unaware, because what Lila didn't know was that the glass she'd be holding soon wasn't the one she thought it was. And once she started talking, there would be no way to stop her. If confidence had a sound, it was the click of Lila's heels as she walked toward the microphone. She didn't hesitate, didn't glance back, didn't sense the shift in the room. She believed this moment belonged to her. And in a way, it did. The DJ handed her the mic. Applause followed, polite, curious, uncertain. 300 people leaning forward, wondering what she would say after the cake disaster. Lila lifted her glass. A champagne flute, clear, sparkling, the same kind she had insisted on handing me earlier. Except this one wasn't meant for me. Her smile widened as she looked around the room, soaking it all in. She loved this part, loved being watched, loved being heard. Wow, she laughed lightly. What a night already, right? A few chuckles, nervous ones. She glanced at me. I smiled back. Soft, encouraging. That smile confused her for half a second. Then she continued. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Lila, Elena's younger sister. She paused, letting the title land, as if it meant something sacred. I've known Elena her entire life, she said. And let me tell you, she's always been intense. There it was. The first cut. A ripple moved through the crowd. Some laughs. Some raised brows. She plans everything, Lila continued, swirling the champagne. Sometimes too much, especially tonight. Grant shifted beside me. I felt his confusion, but I squeezed his hand gently. Wait, I told him without words. Lila took a sip. Not a small one, a confident one. Her throat worked as she swallowed. Nothing happened at first. She relaxed, smiled, kept talking. But honestly, she said, leaning into the mic, I was worried all day. I mean, you saw what happened with the cake. She laughed again, louder this time. That's what stress does to people. That's when I noticed it. Her blink rate changed. Just slightly. She lifted her glass again, gesturing as she spoke. Her hand trembled, barely. But hey, she said, voice a touch slower. Christmas Eve weddings are emotional. Add champagne and... She stopped. Not dramatically. Just paused. Like her brain had momentarily disconnected from her mouth. The room went quiet. Lila frowned, then laughed it off. Sorry, she said, shaking her head. Lost my train of thought. A few guests laughed politely. She took another sip. This time smaller. Cautious. Her shoulders dropped. Then rose again, like she'd forgotten how to breathe properly. I could see it now. The warmth spreading. The delayed reactions. The subtle imbalance. The exact same symptoms I'd felt earlier. Only hers were accelerating. She shifted her weight. Then shifted again. And, she continued. She's lucky to have Grant. Really lucky. Her words slurred. Just slightly. Grant straightened. Lila blinked hard. Her pupils looked unfocused. She laughed again, but it came out wrong. Too sharp. Too long. I swear I'm fine, she said quickly, as if responding to a question no one had asked. That's when whispers started. Not about me. About her. I heard it behind me, beside me, in front of me. She doesn't look okay. Is she drunk? Did she drink too much already? Lila gripped the podium. Her knuckles went white. I just want to say, she tried again. Her sentence collapsed halfway through. She swallowed. Hard. The confidence was gone now, replaced by panic. She looked at me. Finally. Not triumphantly. Not smugly. Pleading. Her eyes silently asked a question she didn't dare speak. What's happening to me? I tilted my head, just slightly, and smiled, because now she knew. She tried to step back from the mic. Her heel caught. She stumbled. Gasps echoed through the room. Someone stood halfway out of their chair. The DJ reached forward instinctively. Lila grabbed the podium again, knocking the microphone. Feedback screeched through the speakers. I'm okay, she insisted loudly. Too loudly. Her voice cracked. And in that moment, with 300 witnesses watching her unravel, she made one fatal mistake. She raised her glass again. I just need water, she said. But instead of setting it down, she drank everything. And that's when her knees buckled. Not gracefully, not subtly, hard. Right there, under the spotlight, on Christmas Eve. And as people rushed forward, voices colliding in confusion, my mother screamed her name, because now there was no denying it. Whatever had been meant for me was destroying her. The sound Lila made when she hit the floor wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cinematic. It was small, soft, like the air being knocked out of someone who never expected to fall. For half a second, no one moved. 300 people frozen in collective disbelief. Then everything happened at once. Chairs scraped back. Someone shouted for help. My mother rushed forward, her heels slipping on the marble. Lila! She cried, dropping beside her. Grant stood instinctively, but I stayed seated. Not because I was cold. Because I needed everyone to notice the difference. The coordinator was already in motion. Professional. Controlled. She signaled the staff. Call medical, she said calmly. Now. Lila lay on her side, breathing unevenly. Her mascara had smudged. Her hair, so carefully styled, was stuck to her face with sweat. This wasn't the version she curated online. This wasn't the confident sister who controlled every room. This was someone exposed. My mother looked up at me, panic in her eyes. What did she drink? She demanded. The question hung in the air. I stood then, slowly, deliberately. I don't know, I said evenly. But I think that's an important question. Silence. Grant turned toward me, startled by my tone. The room felt smaller, heavier. A paramedic pushed through the crowd moments later, kneeling, assessing, asking questions. What substances tonight? He asked. My mother started to answer. She only had. Lila groaned. Interrupted. I didn't, she slurred, eyes fluttering. The paramedic glanced up. Then at the half-empty champagne flute still clutched in her hand. He took it gently, smelled it. His expression changed. Subtle, but unmistakable. Where did this come from? He asked. Every eye turned toward the bar, toward the staff, toward me. I took one step forward. That glass, I said, pointing, was meant for me earlier tonight. A ripple of shock moved through the crowd. Grant's head snapped toward me. What? He whispered. I met his eyes. Steady. I didn't finish it, I continued, because something felt wrong. Now the whispers weren't whispers anymore. What do you mean wrong?
Are you saying? No way.
My mother stood abruptly.
Elena, this is not the time.
Yes, I said softly.
It is.
The paramedic straightened.
Ma'am, he said to me.
Did you consume any of this?
No.
Did anyone else have access to your drink? I didn't answer immediately. I looked at Lila. She was conscious enough now. Her eyes met mine again. This time, there was no confusion, only fear. I did, she whispered. The room gasped. My mother shook her head. No, she's confused. But Lila kept talking. Because the drug doesn't just loosen muscles. It loosens truths. I just wanted her to loosen up, she said weakly. She's always so perfect. That sentence landed like a slap. Grant stepped back, his face pale. My father, silent until now, spoke quietly. What did you give her? Lila didn't answer. She started crying instead. The paramedic exchanged a look with his partner. This needs to be documented, he said. Phones were already out. Not filming, texting, calling, whispering. Reputations were fracturing in real time. They lifted Lila onto a stretcher. She clutched my mother's hand, sobbing. I didn't mean for this to happen, she said. I stepped closer. Just close enough for her to hear me. You meant for it to happen to me, I said quietly. Her sobs broke into something uglier, raw. As they wheeled her away, the room felt hollow, like something rotten had finally been cut out. My mother stood there, shaking. My father wouldn't meet my eyes. Grant took my hand. His grip was tight. Why didn't you tell me earlier? He asked softly. Because I needed everyone to see the truth themselves, I replied. Outside, sirens faded into the snowy night. Inside, the DJ stood awkwardly by his booth. Music off. Party over. But something else was beginning. Because the question no one had answered yet, the one burning behind every stare, was no longer what happened. It was what happens now. After the ambulance doors closed, the room didn't erupt. It deflated. 300 people stood inside a ballroom that suddenly felt too bright, too exposed, too honest. No music. No laughter. Just the quiet aftermath of a truth that couldn't be taken back. I expected my mother to come to me, to apologize, to say she'd been wrong. She didn't. Instead, she sank into a chair like someone who had just lost a bet she'd been sure to win. My father stood beside her, hands folded, eyes fixed on the floor. Grant squeezed my hand again. A silent question. Are you okay? Are we okay? I nodded once. Because despite everything, I was. The coordinator cleared her throat gently. We can give guests time to step outside, she offered. Or we can continue with a modified schedule. Continue. As if this were a minor delay. I looked around the room. At the faces. Some stunned. Some sympathetic. Some calculating how this story would be retold later. This wedding isn't over, I said clearly. The sentence cut through the fog. Heads turned. We're here to celebrate, I continued. And I refuse to let sabotage, intentional or not, define this night. Grant smiled then. Not polite. Proud. The DJ nodded slowly, as if recalibrating his entire understanding of the evening. All right, he said. Then let's continue. Soft music returned. Careful. Respectful. Guests exhaled. Movement resumed. But something fundamental had shifted. People didn't look at me with pity anymore. They looked at me with respect. The woman who didn't crumble. The bride who didn't scream. The sister who didn't lie. My parents approached me eventually. Together. A united front that felt late. My mother's voice trembled. Elena, we didn't know. I met her eyes. You never wanted to know, I said calmly. She flinched. My father finally spoke. We failed you. It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest thing I'd ever heard from him. I'm not asking for anything tonight, I said. Not forgiveness. Not understanding. I glanced toward the exit where Lila had disappeared. Just honesty going forward. They nodded. Whether they meant it or not, time would tell. Later, as guests danced and laughed again, tentatively at first, then freely, I felt a strange peace settle in. Because the lie that had followed me my entire life was gone. I wasn't the cold one. I wasn't the difficult one. I wasn't the problem. I had simply refused to play along. Grant and I danced beneath the lights. Snow fell outside the windows. Christmas Eve continued, scarred, but real. That's when my phone vibrated. A message. From an unknown number. I stepped away and read it. You ruined everything. No name. No apology. I stared at the screen. Then typed 3 words. You did. I blocked the number. Some endings don't need discussion. As the night wound down, guests hugged me tighter than before. Whispered words like strength and grace. The story was already spreading. But for once, it wasn't being rewritten. I had let the truth speak. And the truth had a microphone. Later, alone in the bridal suite, I looked at myself in the mirror. Same dress. Same face. Different woman. Because revenge doesn't always look like rage. Sometimes it looks like patience. Sometimes it looks like letting someone step into their own trap. With an audience. But there was one final twist. One last detail no one else knew yet. Something that would change how my family understood consequences forever. And it would come to light. The morning after Christmas. Christmas morning arrived quietly. No music. No guests. No cameras. Just snow on the windows and the weight of consequences settling in. Grant slept beside me, one arm heavy across my waist, breathing slow and steady. For the first time in years, I woke up without dread. Because the truth was already out. And I didn't have to carry it alone anymore. At 9:17 a.m., my phone rang. My father. I answered on the 3rd ring. Your mother's at the hospital, he said. Lila's awake. I closed my eyes. Not in relief. Not in anger. In finality. I know, I replied. There was a pause. Then confusion. What do you mean? I sat up slowly, careful not to wake Grant. I said, steady. The toxicology report from last night will already be in motion. Silence. You think this ends with embarrassment? I continued. You think intent doesn't matter? My father exhaled sharply. The venue required an incident report, I explained. The coordinator filed it. The paramedics documented it. The glass was preserved. Another pause. Longer this time. She confessed, I added. In front of witnesses. My father's voice dropped. She said she didn't mean to hurt you. That's not the standard, I replied. That's the excuse. By noon, the family group chat was active for the first time in years. Not holiday gifts. Not fake cheer. Legal questions. Medical updates. Fear. My mother finally called me herself. Her voice was thin. Elena, she could lose everything. I stared out the window at the snow-covered trees. She almost took everything from me, I said. Another silence. This one cracked. I didn't protect you, my mother whispered.
I protected the lie.
That was it. The sentence I'd waited my entire life to hear. I'm not asking you to choose me now, I said gently. I already chose myself. Later that afternoon, Grant and I met with his parents. Not to explain, to clarify. They listened. Carefully. Respectfully. His mother reached for my hand. You showed restraint, she said. That takes strength. Grant's father nodded. And foresight. No judgment. No doubt. That mattered more than they knew. By evening, the story had spread beyond family. Friends. Colleagues. People who had quietly watched my dynamic for years suddenly found their voices. I always wondered. I'm glad you're okay. She went too far. Validation doesn't heal everything, but it closes wounds you didn't realize were still bleeding. As for Lila, she wasn't arrested that day. Reality is slower than outrage, but consequences arrived anyway. Mandatory evaluations, financial scrutiny, and something she feared more than anything, silence. No posts, no sympathy comments, no narrative she could control, just time and accountability. That night, Grant and I lit a fire, sat together, finally alone. You okay? He asked softly. I leaned into him.
I am now.
Because revenge wasn't the collapse. It wasn't the fall. Revenge was clarity. I didn't scream. I didn't accuse. I didn't destroy. I let the truth stand up on its own and speak into a microphone on Christmas Eve in front of everyone who ever doubted me. And that was enough. So if you're listening to this and you've ever been cast as the strong one, the dramatic one, the difficult one, remember this. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to stop covering for people who wouldn't protect you. And sometimes, the most powerful revenge is simply letting someone reveal themselves. If this story held your attention, do me a favor. Like this video. Share it with someone who needs it. And subscribe to Silent Revenge Lab, because some lessons are learned best in silence.